Yo, what's up guys? I'm not John Green and this isn't Crash Course, but today we're going to be talking about payoff matrices. And what a payoff matrix is basically a visual representation of the strategies that firms can use when deciding what they want to do in a certain scenario. And so here we have an example of a payoff matrices, and you can see that we have two firms, Chuck Donuts and Fred Donuts, and options as to what they can do in the market. And so we see that they can either use a billboard to advertise their donuts, or they cannot use a billboard to advertise their donuts. And so in this scenario, there are three scenarios that you can have when using a payoff matrix, and that's one company has the dominant strategy, both companies have a dominant strategy, or neither company has a dominant strategy. And what a dominant strategy is just choosing an outcome that no matter what your opponent does, this is your best outcome. So in this scenario, both companies have a dominant strategy. So we'll find those dominant strategies and show you what that looks like. So here you have Fred's Donuts, and we have billboard and no billboard. So to find the dominant strategy, we go to billboard, and you see that he makes 150 when Chuck uses a billboard and 100 when Chuck uses a billboard for no billboard. So it's better to use a billboard when Chuck uses a billboard. When Chuck doesn't use a billboard, Fred makes 200 when using a billboard and 175 when not using a billboard, which is more in both categories for billboard, which means Fred's Donuts' dominant strategy in this scenario is to use a billboard no matter what Chuck's Donuts does. And since both companies have a dominant strategy, Chuck's Donuts has a dominant strategy as well. And so we go to billboard when Fred's using a billboard, and you see that 150 is greater than the 100 of not using a billboard when Fred uses a billboard, and that the 200 of using a billboard when Fred doesn't use a billboard is greater than the 175 when he uses no billboard. So for Chuck's Donuts, using a billboard is the dominant strategy as well. Here's a scenario where only one company has a dominant strategy, and we have the companies Bruce Pancakes and Dick's Pancakes. And to find the dominant strategy, we go to Bruce's Pancakes, and we'll see sign tosser. When Dick's has no sign tosser, is $60, which is greater than the $30 made, or rather, we go to Bruce's Pancakes and go to sign tosser and see that the $60 here is less than the $120 made for having no sign tosser when Dick's uses a sign tosser, and that the $40 when using a no sign tosser is greater than the $30 made when Dick has no sign tosser. So Bruce's dominant strategy is to not have a sign tosser. And so we know that only one company in this scenario has a dominant strategy, but just for the heck of it, we can go to Dick's Pancakes and see that $60 is less than the $120 made when not using a sign tosser, when Bruce uses a sign tosser, but $30 for using a sign tosser is greater than the $0 made when not using a sign tosser. So Dick does not have a dominant strategy in this scenario. And here's a scenario. Oops. There we go. And here's a scenario where neither company has a dominant strategy. We have Flacco's Pet Store and Jody's Pet Store. And in this scenario, they want to know if they should use advertisements or not. So we can go to Flacco using ads when Jody uses ads, and we can see that 60 is less than 120, making no ads the better scenario in this scenario. But we can go and see that 30 is the better scenario than 0 when Jody uses no ads and Flacco uses ads. And we can see, so Flacco has no dominant strategy. And then we go to Jody, and we see that when she uses ads, her $60 is less than the 120 she'd be making for no ads in this scenario. But when she goes to this scenario, 30 is more than the $0 that she could be making. So she has no dominant strategy either. Now, when finding dominant strategies and looking at a payoff matrix, there's what we call the Nash equilibrium. And what the Nash equilibrium is, it basically is just the optimal outcome that a firm has, and it does not differ from their initial strategy. And to find this, it's pretty easy. We have the three scenarios that we just looked at: 2 dominant strategies, 1 dominant strategy, and no dominant strategies. And we can see that they have different amounts of Nash equilibriums. So in our first scenario, there's 1 Nash equilibrium at 15 and 15. And to find this, you can simply point arrows. So for this firms, as you can see, are all on this side, marked in blue. You see that 15 is greater than 10, so the arrow points to the 15. 17 is greater than 20, so the arrow points to the 20. 17 is less than 20, so the arrow points here. And 10 is less than 15, so the arrow points here. And you have 2 arrows pointing here, and this is the easiest way to find the Nash equilibrium. And it just means that both firms are using their optimal strategy against the other. In the scenario of having only one dominant strategy, you actually get the result of having, in this scenario, 2 Nash equilibriums. Although in this scenario, the Nash equilibrium that will be used is this one, because Bruce will use his dominant strategy against Dick. But once again, you can see, finding this, 6 is less than 12, so the arrow points to 12. 2 is less than 12, so the arrow points here. 4 is less than 12, so the arrow points towards here. And the arrows point towards the 2 Nash equilibriums. And to find the true Nash equilibrium in this scenario, you know that Bruce had the dominant strategy. So, of course, he'd be controlling the market. And in this scenario of having no dominant strategy, there is no Nash equilibrium. Because no matter what the companies do, there's always going to be someone winning or losing, and their strategies will constantly be changing until something in the market or one of them changes. And you can see this as arrows point in all directions, each towards a different box. I hope this has helped with payoff matrices, and I'll see you in the next one.